All right, Shalom. Let me give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh Shemi Shai, by Shemar Kakodash. Double lines, the apostles, and others, great millstone, Shalom Tov for the elect. I'm a warrior from Modesto, California, Central Valley out here. Uh, just want to get this in real quick. Haven't been feeling good. But something I was thinking about, I think this is something that's pretty important. Okay, and it's James 4:13. Go to now, ye that say today or tomorrow we will go into such a city and continue there a year and buy and sell and get gain. Whereas you know not what shall be on the morrow, for what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time and then vanisheth away. For that you ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or that. But now you rejoice in your boastings. All such rejoicing is evil. Therefore, to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. Right? And I bring this out because there's a way of language, a way of speaking that can be taken as pride or considered boastful, especially if it's in the sense of telling the Lord, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. Really thinking about it logically. If you tell the Lord you're going to do something, you know, the Lord could have you do something else. The Lord could prevent you. The Lord could have you do whatever He wants. And He could do it just to humble you, just to be like, look, you're not going to tell me what you are or what you're not going to do. There's a scripture the scripture that talks about so the axe boasts against him that wieldeth it, him that holds the axe, that uses the axe, shall the axe boast itself against. Is the axe gonna say, I'm not gonna work today? Or is the axe gonna say, I'm gonna chop down this tree in one strike? You know. So us being the axe, us being the clay, you know, the thing that to be controlled, we can't say what we are or what we're not gonna do, but rather to say, Lord willing, or to ask permission or to pray to Yahweh Shem Shai to allow you to do the things that you want to do, you know, even if it's spiritual things, man. Because you could say, I'm going to do this today. I'm going to get all this done. I'm going to do all these things. And the Lord can have it to where you don't do any of those things. And it may or may not, it could be just based off of that type of language. Just, you know, that's why it says in the scriptures, talking about not to make oaths, because the Lord could have you break it, and then you're gonna be all jacked up in the spirit, man. Which the ultimate oath is to serve Yahweh Shem Shai. So at the end of the day, it's all about the elect. But you know, there's things that you do and that you don't do in order to make your walk easier and less troublesome. You know, um, just through the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the scriptures. And this is a point of wisdom right here, as it says, you know, a man's goings are of the Lord, man. How can he then know his own way? There's people that have fallen out of the truth that I'm sure didn't want to fall out of the truth, man. So just kind of a humble language, a humble way of speaking, and just come, and that's the point also of wisdom is examination. Just thinking, man, am I proud in my speech? Am I saying, am I speaking that way? where I'm saying I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna do that. And it's like, nah, man. What if the Lord has it to where you don't do that just because of the way it was spoken, you know? Just something I was thinking about, something to meditate on, you know. Jump James 4:10, when you jump up, it says, humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up, you know. Verse 11, speak not evil one of another, brethren. He that speaketh evil of his brother and judgeth his brother, speaketh evil of the law and judgeth the law. But if thou judge the law, thou art not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is one lawgiver who is able to save and to destroy. Who art thou that judgest another? And which is why um at the end of the day it's all about the whole idea of reproof, rebuke, and exhortation, admonishment, and all these, different things like this right here. This video I'm doing right here is kind of a, hey, something to think about because I've found myself, I've done that a lot where I would say, man, I'm gonna do this today, you know, or I'm gonna stop doing something, or I'm gonna do something, you know, just for it to come to naught, man. But then I found a lot of momentum in breaking that habit of saying I'm gonna do this or that and changing it to, you know, Baba Kashaw, allow me to do this or that. Please, if it's your will, allow me to do this or that. Which comes to another point of prayer, to pray to the Lord, and in the nighttime before you sleep, and in the morning when you wake up, in the nighttime you can pray about things concerning the nighttime, having good sleep, the Lord taking care of you, keeping these demons away, letting your rest be peaceful, allow you to be rejuvenated for the next day, so on and so forth. I'm sure there's a lot of things that you could think of to pray about. And then in the daytime, all the things that you would like to do during the day or to happen during the day. Because Yahweh Shemel Shai is the one that makes everything happen, you know? And I think that's a good point of meditation that I'm sure has been brought out many times, but we're not perfect. So I've found myself using that kind of proud language, and it's not calmly, and I'm sure the Lord doesn't appreciate it. So that's something I'm working on because it talks about being able to rule the tongue. Your tongue is a it's a unleashed, it could be an unleashed wild thing, man. It just can burn down bridges and burn down houses, and you know I believe it says the tongue is a fire, man. Talks about every idle word being given an account of. So, by your words will you be judged, by your words will you be justified. So, just a more careful language, a more careful way of speaking, when you go down to James 4:13, go to now, ye that say, today or tomorrow we will go into such a city and continue there a year and buy and sell and get gain. You know, yeah, this is what we're gonna do. This is the plan. But it may not be Yahweh Shemiel Shai's plan, you know. So you can't necessarily say I'm gonna do this or that. Verse 14, whereas you know not what shall be on the morrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time and then vanisheth away. For that you ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or that. You know, ask for permission, ask the Lord for everything. You know, it says in the scriptures, ask and you will receive, seek and you shall find. Make sure that you ask it in faith. You know, there's scriptures in the Bible that talk about demons that only come out through fasting and prayer. And what would you be doing during that prayer? You'd be asking the Lord to take those demons off you. You'd be asking the Lord to allow you, you know, to abstain from whatever, refrain from whatever, flee from whatever. Not that you will not, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna cut this off. I'm gonna do this because, the Lord could literally have you do the opposite just to check you, just to be like, dude, you're gonna do whatever I want you to do, you know? And using that more humble language, the Lord, I'm sure the Lord has a lot more respect for that, to acknowledge that the Lord has power over you that you don't have, man. So you really gotta ask for everything. You really gotta ask permission and pray on everything. Everything, man. Even just helping you um for everything. Everything that you may need help with, man. I pray y'all by Shemel Shai takes this damn sickness off of me by tomorrow. you know? But hopefully it's edifying, something to think about, man. Let me give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh by Shemel Shai, by Shemel Kakwadash. Double honors to the apostles under the great millstone. Shalom to hopefully elect.